we'll go ahead and get started. This is Claudel Clark, your host of Sports Talk 757, Executive Director of the Hampton Roads Sports Commission. We have with us, local coaching legend and University of Pittsburgh assistant Chris Beatty. Chris, good afternoon to you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Good, man. Just heard so much about you. Have seen you in the newspaper a number of years, but it's been some time since you had that historic run at Salem and Landstown and places in the local area. And we've seen what you've done in the college coaching ranks, and we wanted to revisit that and share that, sharing that equity with us on the show today. For those who have joined us, Sports Talk 757 just highlights the great things or all things related to sports in the 757 region and beyond. And before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors, Optima Health, CHKD Sports Medicine, Atlantic Bay Mortgage, Town Bank, and Pepsi, our municipal partners, City of Chesapeake, City of Virginia Beach, and City of Norfolk, and of course, our production partner, the Hampton Roads Chamber. Chris, just tell us a little bit about how you got started in the game of football. Did you come up playing or have pro aspirations? How did all this start and lead you to where you are now?
Yeah, so I was like any other kid, sports junkie, whatever season you played it. So played football all the way through, played in college. Had a chance to play in the CFL for a little bit, bounced around trying to get on some NFL teams. Those didn't go, the way you wanted them to. Was really fortunate and blessed to get an opportunity to get a head coaching job at 24. I was a really young guy, but was given an opportunity to be the head coach at North Stafford High School. Had some different thoughts, wanting to throw the ball all the time and all that kind of stuff. And it ended up working out. At the time, people didn't think that would work, but it did, and kind of led me all the way to where I am now.
Okay. So you went from North Stafford, straight down to Virginia Beach, or, how did that journey take place to what we kind of know and see down here? I didn't know about that, but
yeah,
how did it transfer you down here to the Virginia Beach Public Schools and go from there?
Yeah. So I was the head coach at North Stafford for 3 years. We had a nice little run, made some playoffs that they had not done in the past, kind of turned that program around, and then got an opportunity to come to Salem. The job came open at the end of the school year. Mr. Sykes had hired me. He ended up moving on, to a different position within the school system. But it was one of those deals where, I was trying to get back down there. I had worked I coached the 8th grade team or the junior high team at Kempsville in one of the springs before I got the job at North Stafford. So I really liked the area and wanted to get back down there. So, was trying to get jobs in that process. Didn't get a couple of them, finished, runner up on a couple, and then end up getting the Salem job to get back down there. And then we had a nice run at Salem, did some really good things in the 2 years there, had some players go on and do some big things. And then, then obviously Landstown opened up, that was too good an opportunity to pass up. Dr. Fassard hired me there, and, the rest kind of is history as far as that stint went.
So, why the 757? It looks as if you were, out of Northern Virginia or the western part of Virginia, kind of going to high school, grew up in another state, East Tennessee State, I think, for college. Mm-hmm. But, why the 757 and what made this so attractive to you?
Well, like I said, I coached at a junior high, Kempsville Junior or Middle School. And, so that stretch, that 6 month or whatever stretch that I was down there, kind of fell in love with the area, got an opportunity to go back north, closer to where I was from, but wanted to keep coming back down there because football was really important. The athletes were second to none. The competition, coaching wise was high caliber. So it was like kind of everything, that I was looking for. And then, the location was ideal. Like I said, I consider that home. No matter all the places that I've been, since then, I still consider that home.
Obviously, we'll get to the bowl games and the college recruits, University of Pittsburgh, kind of doing some research there. People don't realize the, mega stars in the NFL and beyond, that have come out of Pittsburgh. But, if we could go back, tell us a little bit about the, the magical and meteoric run there at Landstown, and how that all kind of popped off, and you and the players and the coaches that kind of made that possible. Just in a few minutes, if you could help us relive that.
Yeah, it was like initially I wasn't really gonna try to make that move for that job. Then some things kind of happened that pushed me that way. I kind of think it was somebody telling me that's where I needed to be, and the timing ended up being right for everybody involved. We had a really talented group of kids, a really good quarterback, which everything starts with a quarterback anyway. But we had great support structure. Like I said earlier, Dr. Fassard, Jay Thomas, Mike Nichols, those are great front administrators to work for and work with. So during that stretch, like I said, we had the perfect balance to be able to be successful because we had a ton of talent and a good trigger man. I always wanted to throw the ball, so we threw it every down, and no one down there had really done that. We were in the shotgun and running no huddle, so it was hard for people to be able to defend, and it was different from the wing tee and all the things that people were running at that time. So, at the end of the day, it was a perfect conglomeration or timing of right time, right place, right people. And at the end of the day, I think that's what's important. It was the right people. We had TJ Mitchell at quarterback, and obviously Percy Harvin and Jeremy Gilchrist. Those guys set records in the VHSL, and Damon McDaniel and all the great players that we were able to coach, led us on a run, that at the time had never been done. Since then, it's kind of one of those, the area kind of needed somebody to push the door open. We were probably that team to push it open, because I think the Beach had not won a championship, since the 70s, since the playoff format had been established. And then we became the first team, and went to the state championship every year, and kind of became a small powerhouse at that time.
And Coach, before we go on, I see a number of questions coming in. Anytime we have a esteemed guest like this, we're going to get a number of questions. Those who are listening, please feel free to send in your questions at any point in time, and we'll have a break in the action with Coach Beatty, and we'll get to those. Coach, I have to ask, you mentioned your quarterback and your receivers and some other players, but I've gotten kind of beat up in a good way. You got to tell us a little bit more about how it was coaching Percy Harvin down here.
Yeah, no, Percy is a great player, obviously. He's a legend down there, and he was a legend in Pop Warner, when he was playing for the Thoroughbreds and all that stuff. He was a legend. I remember because his sister had went to Lantera. She went to Salem. And so we were hoping he was going to come to Salem. But at the time, the new school, they were zoned to go to the new school. So, he was special in every way, and that was not hard to see. We were a little different because we threw the ball so much. He always was a running back, but because we threw the ball so much, I moved him to receiver. And, at the time, people were like, what? And then it turned out we used him in the same role that he became in college at Florida, and then professionally with the Vikings and the Seahawks and et cetera. So, but he was a different guy, as far as his skill set, his ability was, second to none. He's still the best player I've ever seen, and I've had a bunch of first round picks and a lot of really great players, but he's still the best player I've ever seen, live.
So that success there, and many people speculated on that time, but that success there obviously led to other doors and avenues. How did that kind of boost your college career, or boost you to a college career? And then how did that start off? I believe it was maybe Hampton or another university that you got to start at and then move from there. Take us through that beginning.
Right. So, we were really successful, had really good teams. And obviously with that, you get some spotlight. People obviously take a different look at what you're doing. So we got some attention, and Joe Taylor, who to this day is one of my, greatest mentors, I think, college football Hall of Fame coach, invited me to come over to Hampton and be the coordinator there. So I was, blessed and fortunate to do that. He had great teams prior to me getting there, and the year that I was there, we were able to win a MEAC championship and and go 10-1 in the regular season and make it to the playoffs and those things. And then, you know, again, when you have some success, we had a run where we had the most, we set a record for the 1AA at the time. Now they call it FCS, sending guys to the combine. We had 5 guys go that year that was more than USC and some national powers. You know, we had a ton of guys. We had a system that I think gave them a chance to showcase their ability, and then they did the rest, and it helped me, you know, to have opportunities as well. So from there, I went on to Northern Illinois. You know, it opened up a window for me to get into Division I, you know, in a group of 5 job. And so, you know, that was a great situation for me. And then, you know, that's led to jobs subsequently. And all of that really, you know, those doors were open because of, you know, the team I had at Landstown and Percy Harvin and Damon McDaniel and those guys, you know, getting people to realize what we were doing because they were so successful and all the eyes that they drew to our program.
So, you know, you see West Virginia on the list, and Maryland, you know, U.Va and others. You know, how many stops, jokingly, how many stops has it been? I'm sure you're tired of packing and moving offices.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things, like that's college coaching, you know, at the end of the day. And very few times have I left to go to something else. It's usually there's something that makes you leave, you know, whether the coach has moved on or whatever, you know, or sometimes they get fired, unfortunately. And so you have to move. That's part of it, you know, not necessarily the part that I like the most, but, you know, you definitely gets old having to move, but that's the business. You look at most people's resumes, they look similar, you know, but all of them have been good stops for me, you know, learning experiences and chance for me to grow as a coach, you know, so I'm, you know, I wouldn't change anything. It's all led me to where I am right now.
Certainly. We always do this. You have so many people in mind and young coaches listening and young student athletes listening. You know, what are some of the things you go from a Hampton to a Wisconsin to a University of Maryland, that, you know, there's many differences in these conferences, many differences in these schools. You know, tell us a few of the intangibles or some of the things that you've learned as a strong up and coming young coach at some of these places.
Yeah, I mean, recruiting is the lifeblood of everything. So you got to have relationships, and that's really what coaching is, you know, whether it be networking to get other jobs, whether it be relationships with your players to be able to relate to them better and utilize them and help them grow at the job that you're at, you know. So I've learned throughout all the stops that I've had and the places that I've been is that you have to have solid relationships. You have to, you know, be able to talk to people and be genuine. You know, be authentic, be you. And, you know, those things are good enough. You know, even when you think things aren't going the way you want them to, you know, if you're you and you do the best you can, that's good enough. And people will recognize that.
What are some of the things that have meant the most to you, or some of the accomplishments that are most memorable and just things that mean the most to you as a coach? Somebody may say it's a bowl game or a first round draft pick. You know, you may think it's a great academic record or a top recruit. You know, what does Coach Beatty define success at through these stops?
Yeah, I think I would define it more. It's the relationships again. You know, like Tavon Austin was just playing in the NFC Championship. I had a talk with him, you know, not too long ago. Alex Erickson, a player that played for me, called and, you know, asked for some advice. You know, he's with the Cincinnati Bengals, you know, or you know, I remember Noel Devine calling me before his first, you know, real job interview and was like, Coach, you know, show me again how to tie this tie, you know, and talk to me again about what I need to do at this interview. And, you know, those things are kind of more substantial to me than necessarily the bowl rings. And I've been fortunate to play in bowl games and playoff games and those things and want to do that a lot more. But with all that being said, you know, it is a situation where, you know, it's the relationships when they call you and ask you for advice, or you get, you know, invites to weddings and things like that. Those, you know, for players that you coach, those things mean a lot in that regard.
Well, that is a common theme. We've interviewed, as you can see, a number of coaches and people who have accomplished all sorts of things. But the common theme is, really those relationships with the players and the, people that you're able to open doors for and help out. And that's awesome. I've been there, done that as a coach. And that's really what you remember and what stands out. Guys need a reference. Guys need a door open. Guys need a connection. Guys coming back as different professionals wanting to offer you services. You kind of see it full circle. So, that's really good to hear. Just taking a kind of break into action for a number of people who are joining and Q&A. This is Sports Talk 757. Claudel Clark here again, Executive Director of the Sports Commission. We have on with us Chris Beatty. Talked about a number of things, coaching and the journey through the college ranks. And, we want to kind of get into one of the words that stands out and is kind of synonymous with you, Coach, recruiting. We've always heard, Coach Beatty can recruit to 757. He can recruit. He's proved himself. He can recruit across the country. Where does that come from, and how did you develop that skill, and how have you become such a good recruiter, Coach?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a skill. It's just being relatable. I think, again, I hate to keep harping on relationships, but at the end of the day, that's really what it is. Having coached against guys down there and the respect that I have for them, and hopefully they have vice versa. And then understanding how good the players are, and then the players, because when I first left the 757 as a coach, everybody said, well, it'll run its course, and there'll be a new group of kids that won't remember the Landstown days. And right now, I mean, that's hard to believe. That's 17, 18 years ago. That's a long time. A lot of these kids weren't even born at that time, but because of the relationship you have with the people that are around them, as it sit back and it's their kids now that you're recruiting, or it's the coaches helping you recruit and making them understand that, hey, this is your past history and success that you've had in that area. So I wouldn't attribute it to any specific skill other than hopefully just being relatable and people trusting me with their kids.
So again, talking back to these young coaches and young professionals and people who are looking in on this, if you're in the college coaching ranks, looking to move up, looking to become a better recruiter, trying to get that recruiting coordinator's position, again, what are some of the things that you tell these young coaches? Like the players are calling, asking for advice. Young coaches are calling and asking for advice. What are some of the things you tell these guys as it relates to recruiting? Be professional. Be yourself. At the end of the day, it's important, how you carry yourself, how you present yourself. You can't try to be something that you're not, but you want to make sure that they understand, this is a profession. It's not just, come up and try to be somebody's best friend, giving them dap. It's about, it's bigger than that. It's more about being a professional coach, being a professional person, portraying that persona. And at the end of the day, I always tell them, dot all your I's, cross all your T's. Make sure that you're thorough in everything that you do. Make sure you talk to people about the players. Make sure you understand what makes them tick, and don't be afraid to say no. Like, a lot of times you can get a great player, but he's not necessarily a great fit. So you want people that fit what you believe in and what your program is. A coach used to always tell me, he said, you recruit your own problems. And it's not been truer words. Like, know who you're getting and bring it into your program, because you can bring in great players, but you have better understand if there's baggage with them. You don't want what kind of player do you want in your program? And that's something I've learned over time. Now, as you've moved through these different schools, kind of a two-headed question, have you been able to continuously and effectively recruit from the 757 on these different stops?
Yeah, everywhere I've been, I'm always going to try to recruit Virginia, as a whole, but specifically 757. I always want to, that's home again. And I think there's great players down there, great talent. So I'm always going to try to go down there and get my share of the talent down there. And I've had regional, schools that give me a chance to be able to be competitive down there. So it's been a great spot for me, at every stop I've been at.
Good. We've seen a number of articles. Our very close friend Larry Obama down here has done some good work talking about you guys at Pitt. and it really exposing us to the program there. We've heard of Pitt, but we've heard of it even more so, you being here and you being there and us exposing what you're doing there. At Pitt specifically, have you been able to get quality players from this area?
Yeah. Well, we had, Patrick Jones here, who's now at the Senior Bowl, and he was before I got here. They did, did a great job bringing him up from Grassfield. And then, this past year, we were able to sign a nice group of young guys that we think are going to be successful here and help, take our program up a notch. It's been a win in every way. And I think it's exposed, what kind of program we have, because I think a lot of times people down there didn't know how close we were, number one, and how successful Pitt's been in the past, number two.
Good. So, with that said, you've had success over these jobs, coordinator, offense, defense, whatever it may be, coaching receivers currently. What is the next step for you, and what is your strategy possibly to, land that head job one day if that's a goal of yours?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a goal. It's hard. It's hard for any coach to be a head coach, particularly for minorities. So, and there's really no blueprint. That's one of the things I learned. I always thought, well, okay, you can do these steps to get where you want to get, but there is no blueprint really, because there's no, outline to how to get to that spot. So, at the end of the day, I'm kind of trying to become at peace. It's a frustrating, battle at times, but to come at peace with just doing the best you can where you are. Coach London used to tell me, he said, be where your feet are. And that's, true as it comes, is just be where your feet are. And then hopefully opportunities will present themselves because they recognize how good you are at what you do.
Certainly. Here at the Chamber, we can kind of go there. We talk a lot about diversity, inclusion, and opportunities, and the business side of things, but people don't realize it's equally as tough in sports. Tell us a little bit about the playing field. We can talk openly and candidly as we want here. What's the playing field like for our young minority coaches as it relates to college football, and is it getting better, or what's the state of that?
Well, it's not level. I'll say that. And I don't know that it's getting better. It's getting more attention. And I thought potentially this year there would be that attention because of what happened this summer and all those things, that it might equate into more opportunities. That doesn't have seemed to be the case. When you look at, I think they hired one black coach in the NFL and one black coach out of the 14 hires they've had in college. So, that's always going to be something that, an envelope that we need to continue to push. And you hope if you push hard enough, long enough, you'll break down some doors.
Well, it's a matter of those coaches and yourself continuing to have these great track records, continuing to do great things, continuing to be trailblazers, and continuing to open up doors for folks behind yourself and others. So we salute you for the work that you're doing there. As we move forward with it, how have you guys been? Obviously, a hot topic as we speak now that has kind of overshadowed some of the things we talked about. How have you guys been affected by this COVID situation as it relates to your spring practice, your ongoing recruiting, and how are you going to kind of navigate through that moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's been difficult to say the least. A lot of Zoom calls like this with the players and stuff. So that's a challenge in itself, getting everybody together with the technology part of it. Obviously trying to stay healthy, so the masks and all those things and the distancing has made it an issue as far as just space. You have, meeting rooms that used to be able to fit 20 guys in, now you can fit 6, and so now you're doing Zoom in one room and Meet in another, so those things have been a challenge. Obviously roster depth, because you can lose a guy in a heartbeat, and then understanding that we got to separate so you don't lose a whole room, because one guy got it and everybody's contact traced into it. So there's been a lot of logistics that have made it challenging. But when you have really good kids, which we have here, it's really not been as big an issue as I thought it would be, back in last, March, April, May. It's really been, our guys have embraced it and done a great job of protecting each other.
So does that keep you on track? You have some schools in different divisions who are starting football as we speak. Does that kind of keep you guys on track for a spring season, keep your recruiting on track for a traditional fall season, or what kind of path does that put you on?
Yeah, so I mean, we had our normal season. Hopefully the spring will go, as we plan. Obviously it's, something where you've got to be flexible and be able to make it work, so that part is what it is. And then, recruiting's obviously been changed because, we haven't been able to have anybody on campus for a year almost now. So that part you haven't been able, you get guys coming in that you may have not seen in a year or 2 years, that you're bringing into your program. So it's just making these communication, like we're having right now, more vital.
Sure. And with COVID affecting things, and then, just questions on general recruiting, is it visits to high schools? Is it combines? Is it showcases? How are you going to approach your recruiting for the rest of this year with COVID? And just how would you generally approach it?
Yeah, I mean, right now we can't go to any of that, so we, like I said, we get reports and get film and all that stuff and feedback, but, we can't attend any of it, and we couldn't attend any of it anyway. But you can't go to schools like you normally would this time of the year, or in April and May like you normally would. You don't have camps like you normally would. So hopefully, this summer, things will lighten up a little bit. The vaccines will help get us to where we have some normalcy. But like recruiting is an ever evolving cycle right now, trying to figure out how to maximize it in a COVID society.
So, again, we're back to that same subject, has that made you a social media wizard or a Twitter wizard, or, is it, I know it's really going that avenue in a lot of other sports. Is it going towards social media and a lot of things like that in football? And how has that changed what you've been doing?
Yeah, I mean, it has, everything is, social media is such a big part of everything we do. Obviously you see that with the election, and all the things that just took place. But for me, that's not a big part of what I do. So, I haven't changed. Maybe I'm stubborn in that regard. I do a little bit more of it than I used to, but it's not a big part of what I do. It's more of, hey, let's just trying to talk, trying to communicate, whether it be text message or FaceTimes or with Zooms or just phone calls. Those things are kind of my approach, and that's what's worked for me. So I haven't tried to vary from that too much.
Good. No, that's certainly good to know. Things have changed so much in all these different sports as it relates to recruiting. I want to go to kind of now to some of our Q&A. Got some pretty good questions here, if you don't mind, Coach. And the first from a very good friend of ours, Joel Rubin, wants to know if the athletes down here, being the 757, are really better than anywhere else, or have you found just as many other areas who are hotbeds for recruiting? And how would you like to see our area grow as it relates to our recruits from here?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's top end players are as good as anybody anywhere. And then, depending on the year, some years there's deeper players than others. But I think, per capita, it's one of the most talent rich areas on the East Coast for sure. I haven't been out west, so I don't necessarily know so much about there, but I know, 757 players can stack with anybody in Florida or the places that people think, traditionally are the hotbed, Georgia. I think we can stack with any of those anytime, anywhere.
Good. And next, we kind of go back to one of the topics that we touched on as it relates to our playing field. And, Philip says, what do you feel the primary reason for why there is no clear pathway for minorities to assume head coaching positions or limited pathways? And do you feel like racism has anything to do with this?
Unfortunately, I think race has, I don't necessarily want to say racism, but race has something to do with everything. Anyone that says different, probably isn't being honest or truthful. With that said, I think that for us, there is no clear pathway because the networking system currently structured, whether it be college or professional, there's certain people that look a certain way in certain positions, and then they hire people that they're comfortable with, that look like them, and that they know. And because things are relationship based and network based, we don't always broaden our network or broaden our relationships to where we can be more inclusive of all different races and different backgrounds and different, upbringing. So until those things change and there is some more, diversity at the top, it's always going to be a struggle. But all you can do is keep chipping away at it and hope that because you continue to chip, that eventually it breaks something down.
Coach, we appreciate this valuable insight. We know your time is limited. You have many other meetings, many other Zooms, many other things that you have to do over the course of a day. People don't realize the college coaching, there's no off season. No. And then it's certainly not a 9-to-5 type job. So again, Coach, this is a show that highlights things from the 757 and all over. We salute you for the great work that you've done here and the great work that you're doing, breaking down doors and opening up opportunities for coaches of all colors. We touched on the minorities, but young coaches in general.
Right.
We're trying to help anybody, doesn't matter what color they are. So with that said, we do appreciate it. And we certainly want to stay in contact with you. And on behalf of the Chamber and the Sports Commission, we thank you.
Thank you, Claudette, for what you do. I appreciate the platform, appreciate what you're doing.
No problem, Coach. And we're going to continue to highlight these athletes and coaches here in the 757. For all of you who joined us today, we had Coach Chris Beatty with us. Tremendous conversation. We appreciate our sponsors, Optima Health, Atlantic Bay Mortgage, Town Bank, Pepsi, CHKD Sports Medicine, and the Chamber, our municipal partners, of course. Catch us in February as we'll roll out some more exciting episodes of Sports Talk 757. To all of you, continue to stay safe, continue to stay blessed. Thank you for your participation. Coach, we thank you. We wish you the best of luck on your recruiting with your family and you staying safe as well.
All right, thank you. You too. Stay safe.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right, thanks.